In this video, we will be discussing the hormonal control of the female reproductive system. The hormonal control of the female system starts in a similar way to that of the male system, where the hypothalamus starts secreting gonadotropin-releasing hormone when the female reaches puberty. GnRH then activates the anterior pituitary gland to produce and secrete follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, and luteinizing hormone, LH. This is the point in which it becomes different between females and males. In females, FSH and LH act on the ovaries. So they travel in the blood to the ovaries and they stimulate the production of estrogen and progesterone from the ovaries. So what do estrogen and progesterone do? Estrogen stimulates the growth of the female reproductive system, leading to the start of menstruation. It causes the development of the female secondary sex characteristics, which include breast development, hair growth around genitals and under the arms, widening of the hips, and an increase in body fat. Progesterone is involved in preparing the uterus for pregnancy and the breasts for lactation. So next we're going to talk about the menstrual cycle. So although the female reproductive system in structure is a little, I would say, simpler than the male, the way it is controlled by hormones and what occurs is definitely more complicated. In males, once sexual maturity is reached, they just continue to produce sperm cells at a somewhat constant rate. By contrast, females follow a complicated cycle in which one egg matures approximately every month. So how does this occur? So the menstrual cycle takes about 28 days and can be divided into 4 phases. The first is the flow phase, which lasts for about 5 days. This is followed by the follicular phase from days 6 to 13, the ovulatory phase on day 14, and finally the luteal phase for the remaining 14 days. So we're going to look at each of these phases individually. So the flow phase is when menstruation occurs, which is the shedding of the endometrium, the lining of the uterus. And the reason this is the beginning of the cycle is because you can tell when it's happening, right? Because it happens externally. So that marks the beginning of the cycle. The next phase is the follicular phase. So this diagram of an ovary is showing the development of the oocyte or egg before it is released and after. So the first thing that happens is that FSH stimulates the development of follicles within the ovary. So follicles are groups of cells in the ovary that contain and provide nutrients to the egg. As the follicles develop, they start to secrete estrogen. Estrogen then acts on the uterus to stimulate the thickening of the endometrium and increase the blood supply in preparation for pregnancy. So in the follicular phase, FSH from the anterior pituitary has acted on the ovary. The ovary has started to produce estrogen, which is thickening the lining. In the next phase, the estrogen also acts on the pituitary gland to cause it to secrete luteinizing hormone. So once estrogen levels have reached a certain point, the pituitary gland starts secreting luteinizing hormone, which also acts upon the ovary and causes ovulation. So the increase in luteinizing hormone causes the egg to be released from the follicle, which is held within the ovary. So in the last phase, we had LH causing ovulation. In the luteal phase, the LH continues to act on the remaining follicle cells and it transforms them into a functioning corpus luteum. And what this corpus luteum starts to do is secrete progesterone, which hasn't been secreted yet, and some more estrogen. And progesterone and estrogen continue to stimulate the development of the endometrium. Progesterone also acts in a negative fashion to inhibit the development of other follicles. The final thing that progesterone does is it acts as an inhibitor on the anterior pituitary to cause a decreased production of luteinizing hormone. As those levels of luteinizing hormone decrease, the corpus luteum starts to degenerate. It stops producing progesterone and estrogen. So they're no longer acting on the endometrium, causing it to thicken. So when those estrogen and progesterone levels go down, menstruation occurs, and the cycle starts all over again.